Hello, everyone. So, for the past 2 months, I have been fortunate enough to have virtual roundtables or discussions. And this month, for Pride Month, I had an amazing interview schedule, but it will be postponed. But I share company with a trans teen and his ever supporting mother. And they are just amazing people and just beautiful inside and out. And so I want to respect the family at this time, but that interview will come. I just want to give them time and give them grace for whatever they need. So, in lieu of that interview, I still wanted to do something for Pride Month. And so, I am going to discuss some points on how to create safety for queer teens and children. So, the mission of B. Whitaker Counseling and Consulting is to educate, normalize, and empower. And I feel this will be a very powerful topic, not even just with it being Pride Month, but just to normalize the experiences of queer children and teens in that they do exist and their lived experiences are real. If you are someone where this topic makes you uncomfortable, you just don't agree with it, and you don't want to hear anything about it, and you are motivated in dumping your beliefs on other people, this is not the topic for you. But definitely tune in later because I will have content for you, but this will not be the discussion for you. So, again, this conversation is going to be about creating safety for queer teens and children. So, I want to give a few disclaimers. I myself am not part of the LGBTIAQ plus community. So, I do not speak from the standpoint of knowing everything. These are lived experiences from individuals, and I am a certified school counselor and a licensed professional counselor associate. I do have friends, I do have family, I do have students, I have clients who are part of this lived experience. So I am speaking from being a professional and just from sharing company. So again, I am not the guru, the know all be all. So again, if there is something that is said that doesn't resonate or I can use further insight on, definitely have that conversation with me. Please do not create a space where this is coming to refute or belittle. Again, the topic is about creating safety. So I definitely am open to any feedback. But again, I want to create a safe space. So the next disclaimer I want to give is that I am using the term queer as an umbrella term. So LGBTQIA plus encompasses so many lived experiences. So when I am using queer in this dialogue, it is to encompass all those lived experiences. That is not to diminish or dismiss any of those experiences. But again, I am using queer as an umbrella term. And so, the final disclaimer before getting into the discussion is that this is not an exhaustive list. There is so many other things that we can do to create safety for these individuals. However, I just had a few points that I wanted to come in, and I'm not trying to be profound or prolific. I just wanted to share. In the work that I do, I really, truly, and just who I am and the integrity in which I move within myself, I do try to honor and respect people's experiences and to understand them too, so that I can better help normalize. And so that's what this is. It is actually a motivation of the heart, not necessarily trying to put out content to make myself stand out or anything in that manner. So, with that being said, let's get into point number one. In creating safety for queer children and teens, it is first imperative, vitally important, that you check your own biases, prejudices, and discomforts. You have to. Oftentimes, and just even in our human experience, outside of the topic of queer individuals, we often want to project our biases, prejudices, and discomforts on other people. And so you do meet people who are very defensive or very argumentative or very closed off or closed minded. When we're talking about creating safety for these queer teens and children, it is imperative that we check ourselves. We cannot and should not project that onto them. You have to check yourself. If you are uncomfortable, if you don't understand, that needs to be known, because you have to be aware of yourself, of how you're going to approach these individuals or feel when you hear their experiences, or how you will treat them or even perceive what they're saying. So that is imperative. That is you don't go nowhere else until you check in with yourself. So when you are reflecting on your biases, your prejudices, and your discomfort, please realize, understand, know they are yours. They are not for you to give to other people. Now we want to. We are human. That is something that we want to do. I have this, I'm experiencing this, let me give it to you. No. Like I tell some of my students, it is in your bucket. There's a lot of things in this bucket, but you do not give away the negative to other people. It's in your bucket. You see it in your bucket and you figure out what to do with that. So everything else that's in your bucket that's positive, you're able to reach in there and give that to other people. I know that sounds very childish, but I have to use that with some of the smaller kids. It's yours. It is not for you to give to other people. And I definitely want to put into perspective of, we are having children and teens who are living in a heteronormative society, which are telling them that their relationships should only look one way. Their identity with their gender and their biological sex should align and only be looked in that way. And then we turn around as individuals in the society, as family members, as parents, as cousins, as teachers, as whomever, we turn around and give them our discomfort when they're already living a lived experience that is not the normal. So that's a lot for a child and a teen to handle, for any human to handle. But especially when we're thinking about children and teens, that is a lot for them to handle. So please check yourself. Don't try to give that to them. That is not something that they should have to carry on top of having to have their lived experience. And most times, but given their age, it's in secret. So that is a lot. Or it's in spaces of discomfort of themselves because they are seen as the outcast or not normal or wrong or whatever the case may be. So that is a lot. So I just encourage us to check in with ourselves so we're not adding that to their lived experience. And let's be real, there's not shit they can do with our shame and our judgment on their lived experience. It's nothing they can do positively besides turn around and internalize that in a negative way. And so to nurture that safety, you need to check yourself. Safety may be you staying away from them. So, point number two, be open and honest. A lot of times with children and teens, adults, we want to come off as if we know more or that we're more knowledgeable in something than we are. No, after you did point one of check yourself, point two is be open and honest and share that. A lot of times, children need to know that we as adults are human, that there's things that we don't know, it's things that make us uncomfortable, it's things that we still need to learn. And how powerful is that if we're going to this child or this teen who's having a different lived experience than ourselves, or lived experience that we're not knowledgeable of, and we're telling them that. How empowering is that, that we give them the platform to make us aware of something or to teach us. So just be open and honest if it is something that you don't know. And this is coming from a professional. I have sat across from a child that tells me something, and I'm like, hey, love, I've never heard that before, and I'm a little confused. Give me some more information. Or, hey, I didn't even know that was a thing. Can you tell me some more about that? Or I'm just completely lost and I tell them, baby, I am confused, but I want to be present for you. So if I make a mistake, let me know. If I get something incorrect, it's okay to let me know. And when we're thinking about safety for children and teens, especially those with different lived experiences, it's also to remember that sometimes being safe is being present. It's not about the knowledge that we can bestow. If you have experience with children and teens, they want autonomy. They want to feel like they are in control of themselves. So it is not always about us saying, hey, I know more about something or I already know that. A lot of times it's just about presence, just knowing that there is a safe presence available to them. That is so important. So, point number three, don't assume anything. Listen to understand. So, that's very important. And that's just the human experience. We assume a lot of things. And a lot of times that's how we're making sense of the world, to be real. So, when it's coming to these queer children and teens, let's not assume. Let's not assume their lived experience. Even if you are yourself having a similar lived experience than them, but don't assume that your experience is theirs or that your understanding at that age or your current understanding is what they are experiencing. Again, children and teens want autonomy. They want to feel that they have some control or some say over their life. So do not assume. And again, listen to understand. If they are sharing something with you, maybe you feel yourself getting triggered, getting uncomfortable, or you completely disagree, you like, that don't make no sense at all. Listen, try to understand. And if it is something that you are not able to understand, if you are being receptive and it's still something you're not able to understand, share that, right? That's something that can be explored. Or, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to research that some more. Or, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to connect with the resource so that I can understand better. Or, hey, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now. Can we come back to this conversation later? Just listen to understand. It's okay to just ask. Don't assume anything. And a quick tidbit, when you are listening to understand, when you have follow up questions, try not to ask why questions. Why questions can come off as extremely judgmental. And typically, when we're asking a why question, we're wanting a finite answer. And right? And that answer has to get processed into making sense to us. But one way to be more supportive is to phrase your questions into what or how questions. So, to give an example, why do you think that? Right? It can come off a certain way, or what makes you think that? Or how did you reach that thought process? Huge difference from why do you think that? And that can be used for anybody. But I just want to share that in the space, especially when you don't understand something. Again, try to frame your questions as what and how questions and not why. Point number four, ask the teens what makes them feel supported and safe. Again, it kind of goes from the previous point of don't assume anything. So even if you don't understand, you don't share a lived experience, you're uncomfortable, but if you are wanting to create safety for this individual, ask them, what makes you feel safe? What makes you feel supported? How can I make you feel safe? How can I make you feel supported? That is so important, especially when we're, like I just mentioned previously, if you're saying, why do you feel unsafe? Why don't you feel supported? Huge difference from what makes you feel supported, or how can I make you feel supported, or how can I change this environment, or what about that environment is making you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. Or developmentally, where a child is, they are trying to make sure that they have value. So they are trying to figure out, am I useful or am I inferior? And for a teen, they're trying to figure out their identity. That's just part of the developmental process. And again, some of the statements I'm making as in reference to neurotypical individuals, and not those who may be neurodivergent. So I do want to put that out there, that just I'm speaking typically for teens and real quickly, children. I just noticed that I use terms that may not be known to everyone. So the terms I used were neurotypical and neurodivergent. And so when speaking about neuro, we're talking about the brain. And so for neurotypical, we're speaking about normal or typical functioning of the brain, what everyone in society kind of sees as normal. So with neurodivergent, that's the opposite. So it's differing functions of the brain from what is considered normal or typical. And some neurodivergent conditions include specific learning disorders, communication, autism, and ADHD. So again, they're both sharing a similar experience with not wanting to feel undervalued, which anyone would, but wanting to make sure that they don't feel inferior and then figure out who they are. They're in some unsafe spaces or unsafe situations because of individuals that they're not ready to let go of, or relinquish their bond with, even if it's a trauma bond. So it's really important that we are asking what makes them feel safe. So even if it's a friend, so we're like, why are you friends with that person? Or that person's not good for you. You can pose your questions of what about that friend makes you feel safe? What about that friend makes you feel heard? How did that make you feel when that friend did that? How is that safe if the friend did it, but you didn't like when your brother did it? So it's different ways to phrase these things. And for our fifth and final point, proactively and actively nurture community. It is important. We are social beings. Even if you don't want to, even if you don't like humans, we're social beings. And for children and adolescents, community is vital. And again, if you go through all the points, they kind of build off each other. But if you are in a space, again, where you don't agree, you don't believe it's real and that they can't be queer or whatever the case may be, or if you feel uncomfortable, please just be proactive in finding spaces for them. So that may be you finding a Facebook group on parents who have similar experiences or people who have similar experiences with queer children and teens. And now you have a safe space to be more safe for them. Or you connect them with a mentor, or you find them a resource that they can connect with. Or you could possibly communicate with the school and connect with the school counselor or other individuals at the school to see what resources are available. And again, when it comes to school, and I won't get on my tangent because, baby, it is a tangent, but it gets very taboo when the dialogue talks about queer children and teens, and there are literally politics in place to say nope, the family handles that. So again, I'm not saying go to your school to say, hey, help me be comfortable, but you may make them aware, hey, I am aware of this. If you do see my child uncomfortable, or if my child is coming to you and making requests that people are messing with them, just be aware and just be proactive and active in nurturing the community. This can look a variety of different ways. We have access to the entire world in our hands. There are resources that you can find. And even if that is nurturing friends that are outside of school, that may be, or connecting the child or teen to volunteer work, or just finding safe spaces for them. If the spaces cannot be nurtured with you or in the home environment, then please go outside of that to find the community. And we really want to just counter the child feeling rejected or unseen or unvalued, or for anyone, especially for children and teens during this developmental stages of their life. Community is important, friends are important. And just to shed a little light, I'm not going to go into great detail, but something that really is alarming when we're thinking about community or children feeling accepted and not shunned and shamed for who they are and their lived experiences. Completion of suicide is very high amongst children and teens. So, suicide, it's not just wanting to kill yourself. When you're thinking about it in terms of, I want pain to end and I know a way to make sure it ends, that's really what I'm speaking of. It is amongst the top 5 leading cause of death for children and teens. And then you also have non suicidal self injury. And so, what that is that individuals physically harm themselves, but they're doing so to feel emotional relief. And so that's very important. If you have a child or a teen with this lived experience that's not accepted, no community, they're constantly being put in spaces to where they are uncomfortable with not being accepted by the world, but then the world tells them that they're responsible for making sure that the world is comfortable, which is insane to think about. And then they don't have outlets or communities or acceptance among other individuals, then that can be internalized. And so with non-suicidal self-injury, I don't know what to do with all these emotions. It's so overwhelming. So I physically cause harm to my body. So I may cut my skin, I may burn myself, I may scratch myself, I may bite myself, I may do all these things, and it helps me feel a bit of emotional relief. It's just so important that we just help create safe spaces for queer children and teens and other individuals as well. You may know someone and be able to show up and be present in a different way for them. So, again, just to briefly recap, the first point was to check your own prejudices, biases, and discomforts. The second point was to be open and honest. The third point was to assume nothing, listen to understand. And remember, with listening to understand, you are going to frame your questions as what and how questions as opposed to why questions, which can come off judgmental. And then the fourth point was to ask the queer child and or teen what makes them feel safe and supported. And then the fifth point is to proactively and actively nurture community for these teens and these children. I hope this is insightful. I am so thankful if you made it to the end to listen to this. And I am just hoping that something can be taken from this to where we do have these queer teens and children in safe spaces. Even if those spaces are not with us, we are able to find them spaces so they know that their lived experience is real and that they have value and they have worth and they don't need to be shunned or shamed for something that other people may not understand. So, see you next time.